Had I been in office for the last year, I would indeed have given you a view of highlights over the last year. As it happens, technically, I don't assume the office until tomorrow. So this part of my contribution will be refreshingly brief and will refer to the excellent experience which we have had here over the last 2 days, which I think has given us a great deal to think about, and a proper thanks will be expressed in due course. Concerning next year, we know that on or very close to the 18th of September, there will be a gathering in Bologna, but as the Council does not meet until tomorrow, it would be totally inappropriate of me to reach assumptions about what they are going to conclude and tell you before they decide them. And so that part of my contribution will also be refreshingly brief. What our President has asked me to do is to share with you a little bit about my background, what I bring to the Observatory, and I want to issue an invitation to you. What I bring to the Observatory is a passion for higher education. That was born out of studying and teaching economic organization and researching aspects of strategic planning at the University of Bath. Some would say that after that, I lapsed into administration and moved to the dark side. Others tell me that I found the light and moved into a regional planning and development role where I was able to work with others in further and higher education. What I can share with you is that it was a very exciting time with much greater vocational emphasis, new pedagogical challenges to more traditional methods. Information technology was making an entrance big time, and there was excitement surrounding the launch of the first desktop computer and Apple Macs. Colleges and polytechnics in the UK were being given more power to govern their own affairs and shoulder more responsibility for their own financial performance. Tempted by the challenge of enabling those changes to happen well, I moved to be the first secretary of the newly incorporated Polytechnic of Huddersfield, and then on to the more traditional University of Hull, the 14th oldest in the UK, to be its registrar and secretary. These were very different institutions. Each had different values and missions, but they both had academic communities that were passionate about their purpose and a fundamental integrity. They taught me a lot about governance and leadership, and being at the center of their development for 14 years enabled me to understand how institutions and state agencies related and could respond well to each other. My first international adventure came when I was asked to set up the British University in Dubai. On arrival in 2003, there was literally a royal decree and a hole in the ground for the foundations. From those two, it was my task to build a university which would, in the words of the people who instructed me, operate to British standards in disciplines which were relevant to the development of Dubai. Agreeing the values of the university with the initial and very internationally diverse group of faculty was a vital step before we could develop the various plans, bylaws, regulations, and procedures. Now, the British University opened just over 11 months after I arrived. It's now recognised as being one of the premier providers of postgraduate programmes in the United Arab Emirates. And while it's not as large as its competitors, its integrity and its quality assurance processes have drawn the respect of British University and commercial partners, which have enabled that university to thrive. I come to you most recently from the UK's Leadership Foundation for Higher Education. There, my task was to develop the international activities of the foundation, and we now operate in 30 different countries, including both developing and developed economies. A sequence of 9 programs for Pakistan, a major program with Iraq, an urgent program for Libya following the overthrow of Colonel Gaddafi, and most recently a program for 60 rectors from Kazakhstan, probably had the greatest impact on the development of more autonomous higher education systems and universities. The development of collaborations with the Association of Arab Universities and Arlene have been particularly significant. So, how might these experiences have prepared me for the role which I now contemplate? With reference to the last question about how we implement values, I think it's not insignificant that leadership development has played a significant role in the last 7 years of my life. From starting with leadership development for vice-chancellors, or with those who had the potential to become so, the Leadership Foundation has developed to provide its work with members of governing bodies, heads of departments, directors of services, and with students. In other words, the importance of leadership development at all levels is, I believe, very significant. This morning, we had an excellent session with students talking about the development of a Magna Charta for students. I've been instrumental in designing leadership development programs for students. In the UK, these have been largely for students who have been elected to serve on the governing bodies of universities to enable them to become effective quickly and to make the greatest impact during their time on the board. In an international context, a very inspired lecturer from University in Saudi Arabia consulted us about preparing a program for prize-winning students that would be a reward to them, that would be of benefit throughout their lives. We put together a leadership development program in London, which has since been repeated and extended to the girls of that university. Unfortunately, the girls don't get to travel to London to do it. Our staff have to travel to Dammam to do it for them. But nevertheless, the benefit should be the same. The general and global shift in responsibility for student tuition fee funding from the state to the individual students is, I think, having the effect of students becoming much more demanding in the information that they seek about universities and the performance of universities, including the level of service and attention which they expect from their universities. There's also a pressure on universities to provide programs which will enable students to form or to get better jobs more quickly and to earn more money. A combination of these things, I think, means that we need to pay more attention to students, and we need to listen to their voice. And I think the Magna Charta Observatory could play a valuable role by enabling universities to communicate to prospective students the advantage of operating autonomously in line with its values and what benefit that might bring to its programs. Students have a choice of where they study, and to exercise that choice in the light of benefits that they would get from studying in a university that was associated with the Magna Charta would, I think, be a good role for the association. Experience as a registrar has enabled me to appreciate the need of support for people holding those roles and for them to have networks around them. And the Observatory, I think, is in a very good position to provide that support. It is, however, from what I've seen regarding the varying missions of universities in emerging economies and middle-income countries, operating in very different and sometimes difficult contexts, and looking at the relationships with their ministries or buffer bodies, from which I will draw much in thinking about how to go forward as Secretary General. The range of different cultures and contexts in which we work makes the pursuit of academic autonomy a very dynamic project. During the Arab Spring, young people voiced their concerns loudly. Youth unemployment, inappropriate higher education, lack of critical thinking, insufficient transparency, lack of ability to choose which programs they want to study and the universities which they wish to take them in, and limited availability of university places were among their concerns. And they were voiced in the context of the growing proportion of the population being under 25 years of age. States responded with administrative reforms, but not always with the resources or the conditions that would enable planning with confidence to ensure that the essential conditions for autonomous operation were met. Looking further east, we see the ASEAN integration and the huge opportunities for universities to develop there. Beyond individual regions, advances in information technology, the faster pace of change, the more comprehensive nature of globalization are requiring greater internationalization on the part of institutions. University strategies vary depending upon their mission, and their strategic plans include one or both of teaching and research. Recruitment of both faculty and students from other countries is becoming more common for a mixture of motives. Teaching in languages other than the national language of the university, often in a third country, is becoming more common. In some countries, higher education is becoming much more explicit as an economic commodity rather than an intellectual experience that is valuable in its own right. The scramble to rise up national and international league tables is, I'm afraid, seriously influencing the behaviour of some universities, although many of these league tables contain sufficiently diverse criteria and different weightings to enable most universities to claim success. Although difficult, maybe we should think in terms of a league table of autonomous operation and connect that with our work. It's difficult and one could not guarantee credibility, but it may be a way to think about promoting what we do. As far as quality assurance schemes are concerned, with which I would link assurance that we are living by our values, it is far more effective to invest in that than to have to deal with the costs and the damage that might be resulted if we fall foul of them. In coming to a close, we obviously relate very directly with our signatories. Perhaps we should think more of relating with their stakeholders, the people they must engage with increasingly to fulfill their mission. What I conclude from my brief encounter with the Observatory is that its council and I are not going to be idle. Our journey is a long and an interesting one with a lot to learn en route. I would very much value any observations or any guidance which the people in this room would like to give me as I set out on this task, and I look forward very much to working with you all. Thank you.